Hello everyone, and welcome back to CryptoCadet Academy. Today what we're going to be talking about is how to replace basically any field that you want to for your metadata. Now this is specifically for NFT projects, but you can do it for pretty much anything that's in JSON format. Again, if you are following along at home, you can find this source code and all the other source codes for the projects in CryptoCadet Academy on GitHub. But let's jump into it. So basically what we have here is this metadata, and we have the image field where it says this, replace this with your URL. Now the first thing that we're going to want to do is, you see that we have from another project this make copies function, which basically all that's going to do is we're going to make 100 of these 100 copies of these same metadatas. If you haven't seen that video, I'll go ahead and put a link to it so you can follow along as well. But it's pretty straightforward. What we'll do is we'll just call Python 3 make copies. Okay, and as you can see, we've got copies of the same old JSON metadata. Now from there, in order to set our image field with the correct IPFS URL or whatever URL we want to use, we're going to do something like this. The only import we need is the OS import. Use this test metadata directory. Let's start the count at 1. And then let's do a for loop. Okay, and all we're doing there is basically what it's saying is, in this loop, take whatever number is the count, concatenate this with the directory. So in this case, the first one would be 1.json, right? So you're just opening that file. Obviously that file has to exist, so just make sure whatever you name it, it is correct. Read each file, and from there make sure you get this part right. You're replacing, and in order to read the JSON correctly, you have to cast it in bytes. And then set the encoding as a UTF-8. So now basically what we're doing is, whatever I want to replace everything with, that also has to be in bytes. This is the replacement hash. All right. And encode that as well. All right, so we're still not done. We have one more step. Basically, take that file, reopen it, and write the changes to it. So that's what this WB would be. RB is for read, WB is for write. And then just go file, write, file data. And the last thing we need to do is update the count. All right, save it. And just to make sure, check, okay, so now it says replace this with your URL. Let's go back and run it. Okay, now let's check one. And you see, they're all changed. Now this is just an example. If we were to modify this script, for the most part, your image hashes, it's not going to be just this image hash. It's probably going to be something like a directory where if this is 1, it's going to go to something like 1 PNG or something like that. You can modify the source code to replace whatever you want to replace. So if instead of replacing the image URL, we wanted to replace like the name title, like a lot of times you'll see it'll say stuff like test metadata number 1, right? And then each one will be test metadata number 2, test metadata number 3, so on and so forth. What you would do instead to replace that is you would take the test metadata part and you would just say, okay, find test metadata number plus the count. And then you would replace it with that number, right? Or you would replace it with, I guess if you made the copies first, it would always be number 1, and you would be replacing that with test metadata string count. So it'd be something like that. So that's how you would renumber stuff as you made the copies throughout it. Like I said, you can do this for pretty much any part that you want to replace. Like let's say you had a long description and you didn't like it and you want to change it. You would do the same thing for that. Copy and paste this, and then the second field would be what you'd want to replace it with. And as you saw, it's actually pretty fast. That'll be it for this tutorial. If you found it useful, please give a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.